What's going on, y'all? Lisa here, and thanks for checking out this week's recap of Rise, all about episode 5. Now, you know what? I think this episode might be Lou's turning point. Sure, he still has one really big selfish moment in this episode, but it seems like by the end of it, he's finally learning that things aren't all about him. Maybe he should start opening up and caring about other person. And I believe this is the perfect time for this kind of because we're halfway through the season, so let's just hope he continues to move towards likable as we continue the rest of the season. This week's episode is titled We've All Got Our Junk, which refers to the song My Junk from Spring Awakening, which we hear the cast rehearse in this episode. It of course also applies to our characters, so let's break down the episode. For Gwen, her world is officially crumbling. The moment we knew would be happening has finally arrived when it comes to her parents, and she does not take it well. Her parents, Coach Sam and Denise, sit her down with a therapist to break the news that they're indeed getting a divorce. During her costume fitting at school, Gwen confronts her mom, Denise, asking if they've thought this through, like if they're going to move, sell the house, how it's going to affect their lives, and if Denise even gave Sam a second chance. Well, after school, Gwen goes to her dad's office to ask for a ride home, which surprises him because he thought she'd just get a ride home with her mom. Sam then reveals to Gwen that he and Denise indeed tried hard to make it work, but their marriage actually had been broken for a long time before the implied affair with Vanessa. In fact, they tried staying together mainly for Gwen. We then see her walk out of the locker room and we see that Gordy is sitting outside and overheard all of this. She tells him to not say anything to anyone. Gordy also isn't having the best time in this episode with his parents, but it seems like he's starting to make progress. I know I feel like I say that every episode, but this one seems like it might stick. Lou and Gail stayed up all night waiting for Gordy to come home, but he never did. That morning, they get a call and they go pick up Gordy from Coach Strickland's house. Turns out Gwen saw Gordy wandering around town and he didn't want to go home, so she brought him to their house. Now Gail and Gordy immediately start fighting because neither want to really listen to each other, and surprisingly it's Lou who steps in to calm the situation. And Gwen kind of looks on from the stairs, and I think at this moment she realizes that every family has problems that you don't know about. Since it seems like Coach Sam's program isn't working to Lou's standards, Lou confronts Sam and says, hey, things are getting worse. What are you doing with my kid? Sam gives an answer, and then Lou begins to open up and says that his father was an alcoholic, so they're trying to get in front of this with Gordy. When Sam asks Lou if he's even told Gordy about this, Lou says he hasn't told any of the kids because he wants to protect them, but Sam suggests that maybe he should just tell Gordy his problem doesn't come from nowhere. Being upfront with the kid could actually help. So after school, Gail and Lou sit Gordy down and lay down some rules, including that if he fails a breathalyzer test at any time, he'll have to go to a program. But Lou still does not tell Gordy where his problem stems from. Now, after everything that happens in this episode, it seems like Lou has come to the conclusion that he needs to tell Gordy the truth. He goes into Gordy's room and sits down with him and tells Gordy about his own father being an alcoholic and what it was like for him as a kid. Lou actually calmly tells Gordy that he thinks it's time to think about getting real help and doing the work. And he also tells Gordy that he loves him and that Gordy is his boy and he's here for him, and so is the whole family. Now, Gordy is emotional. It seems like this conversation may actually be effective. He doesn't say a lot verbally, but his face does say a lot. And honestly, I think this is what Gordy's been craving the whole time. Like, if Lou had just had this conversation with him in episode 1 or 2, we could have made more progress with this relationship by now, but I get kind of why they dragged it out. It seems like Gordy may be a little happier because we see that he is out having ice cream with his little sisters, which is sweet, and it seems like Gordy didn't want to spend time with his family, so just this little moment is the glimpse of hope that Gordy is on the upswing. He ends up seeing Gwen sitting on a bench by herself wearing her dad's jacket that she pulled out of one of his boxes as he moved out. They don't really say anything to each other, they just kind of sit there, but it's like they understand each other. And I think there was this quote that I read once, it's like, the best type of friend is one that you can sit on a porch swing with, say nothing to, and then leave thinking that knowing that you've kind of had like the best conversation. And I feel like that's what's going on with these two. And I don't know if it's going to be romance right off the bat, but they both have dysfunctional families, so maybe that'll help them bond and they'll be able to talk their problems out with somebody. Alright, who's next? Let's go for Tracy. It seems like she's been bit by the love bug, but she is trying so hard to fight it. She keeps staring at Andy in the halls, and Lou tries to apologize for meddling, but Tracy says the date actually wasn't a disaster, so Lou's all happy and he's like, are you gonna see Andy again? But Tracy says that's not gonna happen. She wants to keep things professional. Well, we continue to see Tracy staring at Andy in the hallways, and eventually she can't take it anymore, so she goes to Andy's classroom. She just kind of needs to confirm if he really likes her or not, so she asks if he's used that "you look luminous" line on all the women, to which Andy's like, I've never called anyone that before. that's enough for Tracy. She marches up to him, grabs his face, and plants a big old smooch on it. Yeah, so much for keeping things professional. But you know what? I am happy that Tracy is happy and hopefully finding love and having an actual personal life. As for Simon, he starts out at St. Francis and just tells everyone that asks that school is fine, he's not going to do theater. Well, we all know that when someone says, oh, it's fine, it's great, without actually elaborating, everything's miserable. Now, Lilette definitely picks up on this, and she tells Simon that if he's trying to please his father or keep the peace in his family, it's not okay, because this is Simon's life and not his father's. So basically, encourages him to make his own decisions and to kind of stand up for himself. Simon lets this simmer, and during family game night, he tells his dad that he actually wants to go back to Stanton. And of course, his dad, Robert, says no and doesn't even want to hear Simon's reasoning. That's when Simon's mom comes to the rescue and stands up to Robert. She asks Robert why he's so afraid of this musical and that if he can explain exactly what upsets him so much about it, then she will support him having Simon stay at St. Francis. Well, Robert clams up and avoids answering the question and just says, fine, Simon can go back to Stanton, and storms off. We end up getting to see Simon indeed return to Stanton, where he gets the biggest group hug ever and the nicest warm welcome, and rejoins the cast for the singing of My Junk. When it comes to Lilette and Robbie, they still have this whole Romeo and Juliet or wrong side of the tracks type storyline going on. Robbie's dad, of course, does not think much of Lilette and her mom, thinks that they're not good enough, and that they'll just be the kind of people that bring Robbie down when he's destined for greatness. Meanwhile, Vanessa tells Lilette to be careful of boys like Robbie because they don't live in the same world. Their parents' warped thoughts get inside both of these kids' heads, and Robbie starts grilling Lilette about her mom, to which Lilette fights back, saying his family isn't so great either, considering his dad left his sick mom for a younger woman, and well, yeah, they're going back and forth about whose families are worse and judging each other. So we're basically back to square one with these two, as their rehearsals also suffer from these fights. Lilette decides she just wants to keep things professional between them, just, rehearse scenes, nothing personal. And eventually, though, Robbie invites Lilette to meet him on the roof, and he says that he doesn't want to keep things just to the musical. He wants to mix things up because he is really into her and will be even after this show is over. So it seems like the two are back on track as they share a nice little smooch up on the roof. As for Vanessa, after having an eye-opening conversation with Lilette about Robbie, which causes obviously more tension between the two of them, the mother and daughter, Vanessa decides she needs to stand up for herself at work where her boss sexually harasses her. When he slaps her butt, Vanessa tells him to stop, and he's just like, oh, you like it, because she kind of has this reputation, and so he's feeding off of that. Well, Vanessa's had enough of that and straight up clocks this dude and knees him in the nuts and kicks him, and I'm just clapping along because, well, while physical violence might not be the actual answer, I just couldn't help myself because watching her stand up for herself and take this guy down, it's kind of empowering, right? But we all know that this won't end well for Vanessa, but good for her for standing up to that guy. As for Lou's selfish act for this episode, which you usually get at least one, the theater kids are starting to rehearse with the band, and the band isn't that great. Mr. Bayer, who helps Lou and Tracy out with the musical and also conducts the band, is doing his best with this group of kids, but it's not up to the speed Lou wants, and it's not progressing as fast as Lou wants. So Lou ends up basically taking Mr. Bayer's baton from his hands and taking over rehearsal and pushing these kids to play the song faster, which they actually do okay at, but you do not take another man's baton. Like, it's another instance of where Lou thinks that he knows best, that he knows better than these teachers, music teachers or whatever, who have been teaching this thing for years. Thankfully, he does apologize, but it's mainly because Mr. Bayer is about to walk out and quit on him. But this time, it seems like Lou genuinely feels bad and realizes that he's overstepped his boundaries. So hopefully, Lou keeps that in mind and stops being selfish. On a happier note, Lou and Macius recruit a guitar player named Sundeep to help spice up the band, and it seems like he's the missing piece that they need when it comes to this musical arrangement and the band. And, well, I think that wraps up the main events of this week's episode. Gwen's parents are getting a divorce, Gordy and Gwen are connecting, Tracy has a happy personal life now, Simon's back at Stanton, Lilette and Robbie seem to be back on each other's good sides and making out, and yeah, things seem to be getting better. Now, as far as my favorite acting performances in this episode, I think I have to give props to Gwen and Gordy. Like, Gordy may not have said much in this episode, but his face had all the emotion written on it. And also with Gwen, she gave an emotional performance. I think that, like I said, I'm not a kid of divorce, so I don't know what that's like, but I've seen other people deal with it, so I feel like what she's going through is relatable for kids that have gone through that. So bravo to those young actors. For now, let's look at the promo for the next episode.
I'm so sorry about this. I have a situation. My mom lost her job. I'm gonna have to drop out of the show.
As they fight to hold on,
we will not be defeated.
A friendship will face a moment of truth.
I don't know what you want.
Do you feel something when you're with me?
And the star player
Coach benched me. He won't let me play unless I quit the show.
will face the ultimate decision.
What would you do?
Uh-oh, it looks like the school musical is in danger as both Let and Robbie may have to drop out after Vanessa loses her job and Coach gives Robbie this ultimatum. Now, Coach should probably go seek some advice from Coach Bolton from High School Musical to know that an athlete can do both the game and the musical at the same time. Also, it's a big episode for Simon and Jeremy, which should be exciting. For now, though, let me know your thoughts on this week's episode. Are you kind of tired of all this back and forth between Robbie and Let? I kind of am, so let's hope that these two just stay together for now for the rest of the season and stop this whole, I'm not good enough for you, oh, you're good enough for me, all that kind of stuff. Also, do you think Lou and Gordy are actually ready to change, and do you think Robbie will choose musical or football? Let me know, then you can click right over here for my interview with the cast of The Miracle Season, which is an amazing movie, inspirational, and I recommend everybody see it. Also, there's this week's recap of Shadowhunters. If you like what you see, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that thumbs up. My name's Lisa. Thanks so much for watching.